Hello, folks. This is Shawrya. Welcome to the VC podcast.
Look, I'm still young, I think so. I've been a backbencher. I've been a frontbencher as well.
India is one of the OG startups, one of the biggest names, that initially came through in the Indian startup ecosystem.
During what is called the first dot-com boom or tech boom in the country. I'm very lucky again that I stepped into it and I experienced it. It left an urge and a desire in me to have a second coming.
When it comes to building a career in the VC space, a lot of people coming from tier 2 institutions, how can they go about building a career in this
ecosystem? Have seen some of the most impressive companies being led by founders who were from tier 1 institutes. Now that creates a bit of a selection bias. Look, there is no doubt there are two things that are happening. India is currently the fastest growing economy in the world. Secondly, China, which was leading sucking all the investments of the global ecosystem, has made India the best story, to be investing in.
So, Anup, what's been your favorite investment?
So, look, I landed up leading about 16 investments. My most, favorite investment will come second, but I think I got incredibly attached to each one of those companies, and therefore all those founders are extremely special. My favorite has been...
Hello, folks. This is Shawrya. Welcome to the VC podcast. Today I have with me a very esteemed guest, Mr. Anup Jain. He's worked with some of the top funds. He's been an active angel investor himself, and has also worked in the past with brands like Bata, P&G, Whirlpool, and many more. So today we're going to get into a candid conversation about VCs, about Anup, his journey as an operator, and just try and pick out some wisdom nuggets, which I feel could be helpful for all of us. So welcome to the show, Anup.
Thanks, Shawrya. Pleasure to be here.
It's entirely my pleasure hosting you.
Great.
And really glad to have you here. So my first question is a little bit more towards your personal life. So when you were young, what kind of child were you? Were you somebody who, loved having, conversations with the teachers? Were you curious? Or were you a backbencher? Just to kind of try and understand how things move.
Yeah, no worries. Look, I'm still young, I think so. Well, I've been a mix of many, I would say, moods and emotions as I was also growing. So I've been a backbencher. I've been a frontbencher as well. But yeah, in both the situations, what I used to do was always be in touch with my teachers. I was keen to get high grades. Right, and that was important, I think, more during our time than maybe today. I don't know what is the scene today, but it was certainly important during that time. It decided a lot about your destiny, so everyone was very conscious of it. It decided your admission in college and things like that. So but I thoroughly enjoyed myself, when I was in the front bench. So I guess it was to do with how interesting the class was and how interesting that subject was. So, but yes, I've been a mix of everything.
So was engineering like a conscious decision, or was it like, a lot of peer pressure and parents kind of compelling you to go for the more common path?
Yeah, look, during that phase of life and during that time, India was still emerging and was developing country. This is, we're talking about early 1990s. So the choices that we had were mostly medical, engineering in terms of professional education. And if you were a science student, these were the most viable options. I was pretty sure that right from school that I did not want to be a doctor. So therefore, I took up science without biology. And then the option was that, look, I could perhaps go into computer science, or I could go into, do a BSc, or I could, aim for being an engineer. Engineering truly excited me, and it still excites me today. I like, to fall back on what I learned during the engineering days. And these days, you see so many things coming up. India is developing a lot of IPs. I'm now an investor in the tech ecosystem. So I can fall back on during that time and relate a lot to what founders present back to us because I'm an engineer. So that was very exciting.
So your first job was with P&G, right? And you were working as an associate brand manager. So that's very different from engineering. I mean, that's how I kind of look at it. So how did that happen? And what is the kind of impact that your first job had on you as a professional?
So P&G happened to me from the campus placements at FMS. So I happened to do my MBA after completing engineering in a year of work. And this was also a thing to do during our time. I'm sure many people in your audience will still agree that the preferred postgraduate course for them is an MBA. So it was very relevant during our time. So this was my first job. It had a profound effect on me. And I'm very grateful and thankful that, a P&G, stint happened for me. It is truly an academy as it's defined in management textbooks, very strong culture. It gave me a lot of lifelong relationships because culture is embedded in values. And what P&G tests at the time of entry into the organization is through their interviewing process. They test a lot about commonality in values. And that leads to lifelong relationships, I would say, because relationships are based on values. I think I'm very grateful for both the professional experience as also the personal, gratitude for numerous lifelong relationships that I can always trust and fall back upon.
So the culture at P&G must be very different from what you kind of experienced at India, right? And India is one of the OG startups, one of the biggest names, that initially came through in the Indian startup ecosystem and the kind of VCs that they ended up getting involved with. So how was that like as an experience and what kind of impact did that have on you? Is it something that kind of inspired you eventually to kind of get more closely associated with the startup ecosystem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right, absolutely. So, look, this was a brilliant ride for 2 years during what is called the first .com boom or tech boom in the country. I think it was a little premature, but it happened. And I'm very lucky again that I stepped into it and I experienced it. Each one of these stints, in their own ways, whether it's a P&G or it's an India stint, they've had profound impact, on my professional and personal life. India was another totally different culture. Look, we were working 2 shifts in a day. It was a totally new bunch of people. This was a horizontal portal. So I got in touch with journalists for the first time who were my colleagues in an organization. And you don't meet journalists in a P&G. So it was a very, very, very different setup. There was tech. There was, people like myself from a sales and marketing background, management background. There were journalists. There were people from, also various other backgrounds, customer service, logistics, etc. So partnerships and alliances and all of that. So it was a very different experience, but it left a profound impact. Both again on personal and professional life. We even have a group which has continued for ages. We recently met as a group, people who have worked there. Some of my mentors like Sunil, etc., are from India.com days, and lots of friends as well who I work with still. Yes, it was my first introduction to the tech startup ecosystem. In fact, this was in Bangalore. I still remember 6 block Koramangala, and which is now a very busy place. It used to be quite empty during that time. It left an urge and a desire in me to have a second coming into the startup ecosystem. So during 2015-16, if you remember, that is when Jio was launched. Amazon, Flipkart, Ola, Uber, etc. became a part of our lives, and we started seeing the transformation that they were bringing in our lives, right in the palm of our hands through our, maybe first a few smartphones. Of course, now they've got very advanced. They're almost like laptops in terms of, processing speed and memory. But during that time when it happened, again, this was my second calling, not my first calling. The first calling was definitely during that time.
So a lot has changed over the years, right? And you have been an observer at the same time, also somebody who's very actively interacted with the ecosystem. So what do you think has been the biggest change in terms of how startups were functioning back then and how they're functioning today?
Good question. So I think the scale of things and the confidence around execution, that has gone up tremendously. Technology has changed. The very fact that we've leapfrogged, entirely from sitting across desktops to straight away to laptops, just leapfrog that laptop age and straight away gone into handheld devices, by itself is a big leap. And there is so much power in your hand with that mobile phone. There is so much you can, experience of the world. There is so much that you can do with it. There's so many, my phone, I think, must be having 200 plus apps. I'm sure your phone is the same. So it just opens a whole world of possibilities from a personalization perspective. And which means that founders have so much more room to play. So founders today are also therefore far more bold and daring, and which is a new trend that I'm seeing. I'm also seeing that a lot of founders are now getting into deep tech and IP creation. We're not just writing software for platforms and marketplaces to connect, demand and supply, buyers and sellers. We have gone beyond that. We are creating brands, and that's something very heartening.
Do you think it's easier to build today, or was it easier to build back then? Because I think you can kind of compare first mover advantage to now a significantly better infrastructure, right? But I think both have its own set of pros and cons.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think that still there is so much room to grow. India's GDP per capita is barely at $2,600. In the first 10 years of the startup ecosystem, and that too also the VC ecosystem, the first of the domestic VC funds got active around 2013-14. They've in fact completed their 10 years, the first of all the funds. And this was a time during which, Flipkart, Ola, etc. Came into our lives. Now, look, the focus has changed from the first 10 million households who live in the top 3 to 6 cities of the country, which barely comprise about 10% of our population. The focus now is on building for the next 200 million, people who are having access through YouTube and Instagram. Right. They aspire for things and experiences much as the ones staying in the top 5 or 6 cities. And the difference is that today you have the infrastructure which is remarkably different in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities versus what used to exist at that point of time when compared to the top 3 cities. So the infrastructure is more and more resembling, more closely the infrastructure in the top cities. And that means that the same brands, the same kind of lifestyle, whether it's going to a mall, whether it's, accessing your coffee shop, whether it's, accessing your favorite brands of clothes, or, buying, whatever car you want or home you want, the kind of lifestyle you want to lead, all that has become increasingly or is becoming increasingly common.
Right.
So, but there is a lot to build out still in those cities. And I continuously travel, taking me and my family out of the city to at least 300 kilometers out, where you can travel in about 6 hours on the beautiful new highways that have come up. Yeah. And we are, right now in a very, very, I would say, blessed state that the infrastructure development in the last 10 years has been fantastic. So there's a lot more that Indians are wanting to see, more that Indians are wanting to experience. And I think it's up to now the founders to make the products and services and enable them through tech to reach those customers and then deliver it and make a great business out of it.
So being a seasoned operator and now, then of course transitioning to venture capital, but there has been a lot of conversation about how operator turned VCs are very different from, founder turned VCs, and also arguments in favor of operator turned VCs, right? So from your perspective, if you had to take in a completely unbiased perspective around this, do you think it gives you an advantage, or is it like a disadvantage when you're an operator but you haven't particularly been like a founder?
Well, I've been all of them. So for me, it has been a bit different. But yes, pure founder turned VCs and pure operator turned VCs. I think all of them have their own strengths. The strengths that exist with founders turned VCs is obviously the 0 to 1 phase and the 1 to 10 phase. How to spring up a company is something that you have, experienced firsthand. There is a lot of value in that. You are not going to likely repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah.
You also form a network of support which you can lean back on, right? So when you do it second time round, or you help somebody doing it as a VC, then you are obviously in a far better position as a VC versus a VC who's not been a founder.
Right.
However, if you lack the operating experience, perhaps of large businesses, and having had to experience the country and understand how things function from a regulatory point of view, from an existing, stakeholder ecosystem point of view, whether it's dealers, distributors, stockists, logistics, operations, warehousing, etc., all of that. I think then if you're going to do it for the first time, it is going to be difficult.
Right.
And you're going to do it on the time that the VCs are going to put money on. You're going to do it on their time, so to speak.
Yeah.
So as an operator, when you make the changeover into a VC, you also I feel that you have a much better instinct, a much more developed intuition, combined with data, into recognize a problem, to be genuine, and to identify the right set of founders to work against them. Because you have seen so much, with your own eyes. You have traveled the country, you understand the problems, you also know what kind of mindset is required, which will succeed in that environment. You're also able to guide them. So founders then also respect these kind of VCs in these kind of spaces as well. Yeah. So it's the pros and cons.
It's primarily more around scalability and building systems, which I think as a founder myself, I can say that is something that I have struggled with at times, because we are very passionate and we just want to kind of go ahead and build stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then, when you are actually putting up people in place and things to do, and
True.
I think it just becomes more and more chaotic as you start scaling.
True, and look, systems and processes is something that operators are already
Absolutely.
aware of.
Yes.
Because that's was their role to formulate, and if they're already formulated, then follow them, question them, add to them, make them better. So this is something that comes naturally to them. Also, as you rightly said, I have seen a lot of founders are very close to their product.
Yes.
And therefore they are very good at product iteration. They're very good at taking feedback and improving the product, sitting down, with their teams, improving the product and presenting a better version, a better upgrade, etc. But many of them actually find it difficult then to do a go-to-market. Right. Which is why in the team you need to have both the capabilities, which is the product side and the business side of it. So for operators turned VCs, the business side of it naturally comes very, very, very easy. So they can guide them on it. Similarly, things like fundraising is something that many founders struggle with.
Yeah.
And not just that, they don't have connects in the ecosystem and things like that because they're first-time founders, but also what is the right way to pitch, right? How do I appear across to the other side? What are the elements to put in a pitch? So, and their natural, there is always this natural personality style of whether, you are good at communicating, you are good being in front, or you're comfortable being in front of other people, you're good at sales, or sales doesn't come naturally to you. So I think this is where operators turned VCs can also help the founders, mentor them much better and can help them with it. But look, these are the improvement areas. This is what probably, you should drop it because, it is not fitting into the story. So I think all of those, there are numerous advantages and, of being on the either side, whether you're a founder turned VC or a operator turned VC.